Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the next installment of Lesser Known But Awesome Heroes. And today, I will be talking about Old Bullet Head himself, yes, Richard Reiter, aka Nova. And Reiter debuted in Nova #1 of September of 1976, and he was created by Marv Wolfman and John Buscema. I don't know. I'll just spell the name Buscema. And interesting fact, he was apparently slightly different, and he went under the name Black Nova, and he was in Super Adventures in 1966. However, 7 years later, John Romita Sr. would tweak the design of the character's uniform and he would be re-debuted. Wolfman intended the teen character to be an homage to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's Spider-Man, down to his humble working class roots and alternative alter ego. The original Nova series, The Man Called Nova, the tagline in issue #1 reads, "In the marvelous tradition of Spider-Man." It lasted 25 issues, running from September 1976 to 1979. And dangling plot lines were resolved in issues 206 to 214 of Fantastic Four, which were also at the time written by Wolfman, and issue 24 of Rom the Star Knight. The character then disappeared into obscurity for some time before returning as a member of the original New Warriors team. And he would appear in New Warriors Volume 1, number 1 through 75, the annual number 1 through 4, and the annual number 1 through 4 in July of 1990 to September 1996. And two subsequent Nova titles, Nova Volume 2, number 1 through 18 in January of 1994 to June 1995, and Nova the Human Rocket Volume 3, number 1 through 7 and from May to November 1999. Nova would return in New Warriors Volume 2, number 0 through 10, which was from October 1999 to July of 2000. And New Warriors Volume 3, number 1 through 6 in July 2005 to December 2005. After a 4-issue miniseries called Annihilation, he was in a leading role after the title Annihilation Nova, and a leading role in the Annihilation storyline 1 through 6. A 4th volume of Nova ran 36 issues from July 2007 to April 2010. This series tied into Annihilation Conquest, Secret Wars, and War of Kings. Dangling plot threads were addressed in the Thanos Initiative 1 through 6, and its 2 one-shots from May 2010 to January 2011. Excuse me. He was also appeared as a member of the Secret Avengers during its first 4 issues, from May to August of 2010. Nova has appeared in Marvel and Marvel Point 1, but it is unclear if it was Richard Reiter. This story was a preview for a new series, Nova Harbinger, which was written by Jeff Loeb. Now that I got all the boring comic booky type facts, let me tell you guys about Richard Reiter's origins. He was a student for the fictional Harry S. Truman High School in Hampstead, New York, and is chosen at random by the alien Roman Dai, the last surviving Nova Centurion of the planet Xandar's elite Nova Corps, to inherit his power and succeed him in the rank of Nova Prime, following the destruction of his world by the intergalactic pirate Xur. Having been mortally wounded in the battle that tore Xandar apart, Dai succeeds in tracking Xur to Earth, but is unable to exact vengeance due to the extent of his injuries. At death's door, he has little choice but to transfer his power to an unsuspecting human on the planet below. praying that whoever he finds will take up his cause. Reiter gains the uniform and powers of a centurion, but little instruction on how to use these new powers. Overjoyed, he eagerly takes up the life of a superhero, battling costume supervillains in New York and gradually learning to control his new abilities. Calling himself Nova, he makes archenemies out of out of street level and cosmic level threats alike, fighting villains such as the Condor, Powerhouse, Diamond Head, the Corruptor, and the Sphinx. Nova would also team up with Spider-Man to actually capture Photon, who had killed Richard Reiter's uncle, Ralph Reiter, before ultimately choosing to reveal his secret identity to his family. Discovering Dai's Nova Prime spaceship, which had been invisibly orbiting Earth for several years, Dr. Sun and Sphinx lead Reiter across the stars and to the newly constructed planet Xandar, the same planet where his great powers originated. Traveling with them as well are Powerhouse, Comet, and Crimebuster. Engaged in a bitter war against the Skrulls, the Xandarians form the Champions of Xandar, pressing Reiter into over a year of service protecting their territories from attack. Nova and the Champions of Xandar fight alongside Rom the Space Knight to eventually defeat the Skrulls. Though Xandar itself is left nearly defenseless in the aftermath. Tired of life so far from home and hoping to rejoin his high school friends, he requests to be released from his duties on Xandar and return to Earth. When he is told he must relinquish his powers to do so, Reiter reluctantly agrees. And sorry guys, I had a slight problem there for a second. Got it fixed. But he reluctantly agrees. For a time, he leads a quiet life, flipping burgers as a cook at a fast food restaurant and barely making ends meet due to his disrupted education. He spends his time picking up pieces of the life that he had left behind, all the while wishing he could find a way to regain the powers he had lost. To that end, he makes some unproductive inquiries, such as counseling Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four to see if it's possible. Unknown to him during this period, Xandar is utterly destroyed in an attack by the space pirate Nebula. In a bid to secure new superpowered allies, the superhero Night Thrasher breaks into S.H.I.E.L.D. computers and steals the data of Richard's examination of Reiter, among other superpowered individuals. Deducing that Reiter's powers were not taken completely from him, but instead lay dormant inside the young man's body, Night Thrasher convinces him in a high-stress situation will be enough to reactivate Reiter's powers and open him up to recruitment. To that night, Night Thrasher kidnaps Reiter and drops him off the top of a multi-story building. The fall causes Reiter's powers to reignite from within him, saving his life. Though highly annoyed at Night Thrasher's cavalier attitude, Reiter joins his superhero group, the New Warriors, who first appear to aid Thor in his fight against Juggernaut. Though their first battle pits them against Terrax the Tamer, their adventures together typically include dealing with other street-level villains, as well as Nova's old foe, the Sphinx. The Sphinx, I mean. During this time, Reiter begins dating fellow member Namorita and becomes close friends with Robbie Baldwin, Speedball, also known as Speedball and the Future Penis, from the Thunderbolts. With the New Warriors, he first battled Synex, the Force of Nature, and the Hellions. When the second Sphinx invaded Earth, Nova forced her to undo her transformation of Earth. With the New Warriors, he then fought the Fantastic Four, Terrax again, and was captured by Gideon. During this period that Reiter's parents learned that he had again become Nova, he briefly dated Lorna Dunham, a Yale student, after she got into a fender bender with his delivery van during one of his odd jobs. And he functioned for several years as an earthbound hero with no connection to the now defunct Nova Corps. He would eventually encounter Gathrin Seal, a former Nova Corps Centurion who has been driven insane by his quest to absorb the entirety of the Nova Force, the source of the powers of all Nova Centurions. Having failed in his effort to exact revenge against Nebula for the destruction of his homeworld, he instead turns his attention to restoring Xandar to its former glory. Stripping Reiter of his powers for a second time, Seal transports Reiter to Xandar again and forces him to assist in jump-starting the process that restores the dead planet to life. He also witnesses the reformation of the Nova Corps, which appoints him the rank of Centurion Prime. And assigned to Earth, he is confronted with the challenge of balancing dual lives as a member of both the Nova Corps and as well as the New Warriors. He soon encounters another Nova Corps member from an alternate timeline named Nova 00, who in an alternate future was actually his brother Robert, who attempts to prepare him to do battle with a mysterious force that has destroyed his own Earth, the Death Storm. And defying the direct order of Xandar's Queen Adora to return to Xandar to quell an emergency, Reiter succeeds in stopping the Death Storm and saving Earth. His success is short-lived, however, as Reiter finds himself stripped of his powers for a third time and replaced as Centurion Prime by Gathrin Seal. After several months, Seal is killed by Valix, Queen of the Dire Wraiths, returning the Nova Force to Reiter with his final breath. And Nova would then briefly travel to the U.S. with the reformed New Warriors as part of a reality show. After its first season of the show, however, Reiter leaves the group for Xandar to report for duty alongside the entire Nova Corps, which has been fully mobilized to respond to an unknown threat. Xandar and the Nova Corps are swiftly decimated by a surprise attack by an army revealed to be the Annihilation Wave, newly arrived in this universe from the Negative Zone. As the only surviving Centurion, he makes contact with the Xandarin World Mind, a living supercomputer that is the regulator of the Nova Force. And this thing is actually pretty cool, guys. This thing actually allows Reiter, let me list off the abilities here really quick for you guys. Okay, guys, basically what this thing does is that it helps Reiter contain the entire Nova Force while keeping his mind and sanity intact. It downloads profiles of opponents directly to his brain. It can detect energy surges, including those used in teleportation. It can actually consume control of Reiter's body while he sleeps. It can access computer systems, including shield records. It can analyze attackers, detecting adrenaline surges. It can detect other superhumans with energy-based abilities. It can enable him to hack satellite TVs to transmit his voice and image to individual TV sets. And it can protect him from psionic attacks. Also, and on top of that, he would also down, and of course this world mind also has the collective data of the civilization of the Xandarians. It explains that there is no choice but to upload itself and the entire Nova Force into his body and mind. This act greatly enhances his already superhuman strength, durability, and also granting him control of limitless energies of the Nova Force. It was during the Annihilation War that he would take command of the United Front, a loose coalition of soldiers hailing from different worlds under siege by Annihilists. He would lead Drax the Destroyer, Star-Lord, Plyla Vale, pretty much the new Captain Marvel, Ronan the Accuser, Kif the Super Skrull, and Gamora, with whom he had become romantically involved with, as well as the former Heralds of Galactus, Star-Lord, Redshift, and Stardust, into a nearly year-long campaign. He almost succeeds in pushing back the Force's advance throughout the galaxy, when Annihilus utilizes the stolen power of his captive Galactus to destroy an entire planet. Basically, in other words, they forge alliances with Blastar and the Galderan Space Knights, and he would eventually engage Annihilus himself in personal combat, and he would tear the Terran inside out, and he would basically defeat him from inside out. And, little known fact for you guys, Richard Reiter actually held back an entire wave of brood by himself. Yeah, no joke. He actually stopped an entire armada of brood by himself. That's how powerful he is. And he would eventually come back. He would eventually come back, of course, to Earth and find out about the Marvel Civil War. Fun. And on top of that, he would actually come back to find his buddy and former New Warriors member Robbie Baldwin, Speedball, taking up the name of Pennis, and they fought themselves. And it was then, of course, there were many other storylines like Annihilation Conquest, The Secret Invasion, The War of Kings, The Realm of Kings, The Heroic Age, The Thanos Initiative, His Return. I mean, there's a lot of storylines that Richard Reiter's been involved in, guys, but pretty much it would take too long to explain, but in a nutshell, guys, that is Richard Reiter. That is Nova, Marvel's version of Green Lantern. And unfortunately, he's not the most well-known character, but he's getting up there. But he's nevertheless awesome.